It is an invasion of the sovereign love of God penetrating the gap of darkness with the overwhelming power of His marvelous light. It bridges the gap between man and God. Take a journey through the amazing grace of God with your host, Sarah Abraham, as she shares the compelling stories of those who walked in His covenant and have overcome by the amazing grace of God.
And now, your host, Sarah Abraham.
Hello, I am Sarah Abraham, your host of Amazing Grace. We are simply delighted you have joining us today to hear the stories and journeys of the amazing women of grace, how they have overcome the adverse situation. We at Destiny TV, all of us from Houston, Port Arthur, Beaumont, Corpus Christi, and now in Houston, we welcome you. We are delighted you have tuned into us today. What is Amazing Grace? Amazing Grace is the greatest gift to mankind. It is the light that penetrates darkness, no matter what situation or circumstances you are in. That is what our show is all about. The journeys of amazing women and how they have overcome. Amazing grace is free, and amazing grace is sufficient to you. Today in our studio, I am so delighted to welcome this beautiful woman who has overcome cancer. And today, our focus for this week is about overcoming cancer. And I'm so glad you have joined us today. Welcome to our show, Ms. Doranne Vega.
Thank you, Sarah.
Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Oh, I'm a transplant from Chicago. Moved down here because the weather's great. No snow. I'm 67 years old,
Wow.
and rather I should say 67 years young.
Young, 67 years young.
And I'm just basically a very happy person, and I try not to let anything get me down, not even my breast cancer. It was something I'd waited for since I was about 12 years old. I spent my 12th summer nursing my aunt who had had a radical mastectomy. And then many years later, my mom got breast cancer. A few years later, she got it again. So I was basically waiting all that time. When I finally got it, it was like, whew.
So there's a strong history of breast cancer in your
Yes.
family.
Yes.
Your grandmother, your aunt,
No, not my grandmother, my mother
mother,
and her sister.
and any of your sisters, siblings?
No, I was the, how can I phrase this? It was like if anybody was going to get it, please let it be me. Because my husband died 12 years ago. I don't have to worry about what a man thinks about me. The husband I had was fabulous. He wouldn't have cared. He would have been right there beside me, and because he was just that kind of man, he just wanted me to be well, nothing else.
You know, before we go into details about your cancer and breast cancer especially, I would just like to mention a few things to our viewers watching, that cancer does not mean a death sentence. Cancer does not mean it's over, it's done with. Nowadays, with the medical advancement in treatment, cancer is 90% curable. The key to that is early detection and treatment. And there are many facilities available who does mammograms for free, who does pap smears, colonoscopy. These are the preventive tests that can be taken to diagnose any form of cancer early, especially in women. You know, women, we are caretakers. We take care of our kids, our parents, our relatives, our community, our neighbors, but we often neglect ourselves. You know, listen to our body. Our body tells us if something is wrong. You see a lump, you see a discoloration, you feel pain, or something not right with your body. Go seek medical help. Call the number on our screen and we can connect you with agencies and organizations where free screening and free help is available. You know, if you're listening to me and there is something not right with your body, I encourage you to go seek medical help. Ms. Vega, how many years ago did you have breast cancer?
On September 16th, I celebrated 5 years clear.
5 years. That's a milestone, 5 years.
Oh, yeah. It's a big one. It's a big one.
Tell us how you found out about it. How did you react when you knew it was cancerous?
Well, because I have such a strong history of breast cancer in my family, I did my own self-exams, plus I got my mammograms, and I found the lump myself. I didn't find it through a mammogram. I was taking a shower, and that's actually, ladies, that is actually the best time to do a self-breast exam, when you're in the shower and you're all soaped up. You know, it wasn't there the month before, and I couldn't understand how come all of a sudden it popped out and I felt it. And to that point, it was under the skin. It had popped up to about the size of a small marble, and it was on my right breast. And I just knew it was cancer. And I went to my primary care doctor. She looked at it. She goes, well, just by looking, we can't tell. So sent me to a specialist, and Dr. Dempsey, fabulous breast cancer doctor, she specializes in it. And she sent me for all the fancy tests, the needle biopsy, a more intense mammogram, and for some nuclear medicine. I mean, they were clad in iron vests and brought in this heavy jug full of, but because they had poor circulation, it didn't flow properly. So she didn't know how far the cancer had traveled. So when she did the surgery, knock on wood somewhere, you know, thank God, it was only like, it was just under stage 2.
But what I wanted my audience to know that it was a self-examination.
It was a self-examination that found it.
That is so important.
Yes.
You know, most of us, including me, we ignore it.
Well, a lot of women aren't comfortable touching their own body other than just cursory washing and showering. They'll take a wash rag and wash. You have to do this with your hands, with nothing on them, because it's the only way to, sometimes the lumps are so slight, they can be mistaken. I had what's called calcifications that would always show up on my mammograms. And several times the doctors thought they had grown, and fortunately they hadn't. But this time, it was nowhere near my calcifications where I found the lump.
You knew
I
it
found
was something different.
down here. I knew it was something completely different. And I knew that I had to get it checked out. Now, I found it in July. I got operated on in September.
Oh, just a minute. So just tell us what was the treatment plan?
Well, the doctor wanted to do basically a lumpectomy, where she just took
Yeah,
the
take
lump
the
out.
lump out.
And because my mom and my mom had breast cancer 2 different times, and my aunt had breast cancer, her sister. And I had waited for so many years. I knew it was going to be my sister or I that got it, of course. And I always prayed that it would be me that would get it rather than my sister. I know that sounds like a negative connotation of prayer.
I think
But-
you were a big-hearted person. You know,
It's been-
you probably know you were better equipped to handle that.
Yes, yes.
So that's why you prayed that way.
Yeah, and listen, my sister can't even get a colonoscopy because she knows it runs in our colon cancer runs in our family too, and she's scared to death to even get a colonoscopy. But I just knew I had to get something done. This was not something, and those 60 days were like the 60 longest days of my life, because I wanted. Her treatment plan was to treat it less aggressively, because a lot of women can't handle the disfigurement, and I didn't have those problems. My thing was, I don't want to play games. Just get them off. Period, end of sentence.
So that's why you decided to have a double mastectomy.
Yes, and it turned out when they did the biopsy of the left breast, they found the same type of cancer that was getting ready to blossom. It was precancerous, but it was the same type that the right breast had. So doctor said to me that she said, "How did you know?" And I says, "I didn't, but I just knew that it wasn't worth playing around with my life."
And after the mastectomy, you had radiation and chemo?
Again, thank God. No, I didn't. I have been on Arimidex, tamoxifen first, then Arimidex. It's a cancer drug.
Cancer drug.
And my chances of getting breast cancer again are about that big.
Wonderful. Because they must have removed all the breast tissues and everything. So
all the sublying. And they took out the lymph nodes under my right arm, like I said, because I had the circulation problems. She couldn't tell until she took them and had them biopsied whether I had any cancer under my, in the lymph nodes. And it turned out there was no breast cancer in the lymph nodes.
thank you,
So
Jesus.
it was like no radiation, no chemo, nothing. And I was spared. I was spared that, And I felt so grateful to the Lord that I had not had to endure
That
that
chemo and
on
radiation
top of
and
the
side
cancer.
effects and all that. But you had another problem. That was the reconstructive surgery.
Well, I was happy the way I was. I didn't care. Boobs, no boobs. So be it. But what had happened is the plastic surgeon who had started with the reconstruction after the surgery, he had put in saline expanders. A week after my initial surgery, I had to have another surgery because I had necrosis, which is dying of tissue. And a week later, I had a third surgery for additional necrosis. And each time you have the necrosis, they had to keep taking more and more tissue. So, you're trying to put two ends together. Well, during the final surgery there, he took out the tissue expanders, saline expanders.
Is it because of your circulation problem?
Partially that, and partially he wasn't a reconstructive surgeon. He was a good plastic surgeon, but he put in the expanders to expand the tissue so I could have saline implants put in farther down the line. And the saline expanders are to expand your skin, so you're prepared for
the implant.
the implants. Turns out, for some reason, I had an allergic reaction, a rejection, whatever you want to call it, of the expanders. So as I had so much infection, he was able to close the right side, but my left side was left open for 9 months to heal on its own. And what had started to happen, Sarah, was the tissue on my breast had gotten tighter and tighter and tighter. If any of you have ever had a scar and it is pulled tight, that's kind of what this was, only it had taken to the point where my arms were like this and I had to hunch over like this because
Couldn't spread your...
I couldn't spread. And it turned out that some of the skin had grown onto my chest wall, had grown onto my ribs. And it was the only reason I considered reconstructive surgery. And it was my cancer doctor, Kelly Dempsey, that found Dr. Bullock's for me.
Yeah, tell us about your miracle working Dr. Jamal Bullock.
You don't have enough time left on your camera for me to tell you about this man. He is fabulous. He is a specialist in reconstructive surgery for breast cancer patients. And he looked at me and he checked everything out. And the other plastic surgeon only gave me a 40% chance of success. And I would have been happy for a 70% chance. But when I asked him what my chances were with him, he said 90%. And I was like, how fast can we do this?
And one other thing you mentioned about him that is important is you said he treated you like you were his only patient.
Oh, yeah. Oh, he treated me like I was the only patient in the whole wide world. He sat there and he listened to me. He talked to me. He didn't preach or sermonize me.
Throw you some medical jargons that you don't understand?
Nope. It was plain speak. But of course, I'm quite knowledgeable about breast cancer, but he didn't try to make it at this level. He talked here on human level, and he was just amazing. He was amazing, and I can't say enough about him. He was fabulous.
You had another miracle in your life.
Yes.
I want you to share us that story about your children that you found after 27 years.
Well, my first husband and the father of my children was not a very good man. And
how many children are we talking about?
I have 3.
3 children.
And I'm in contact with my oldest daughter and my 3 grandchildren. My son I have just recently become in contact with. My middle daughter I still don't have any contact with.
Does your other children have contact with your middle daughter?
Mm-hmm. I mean, I lost him because Fred had terrorized me and I left the state with them without court permission. And I didn't know I needed it. My lawyer never told me. And I lost my kids because of that. And it was easy it was easier for he was brainwashing them that every time I talked to them, they were getting more and more vicious on the phone. And I was getting a psychotherapy to try and get my life back on track. And I actually made the decision to step out of their lives so he would not continue his sermonology of poison. And
So he was brainwashing them against you.
yes, and of course it didn't take
How old were they at that time?
9, 10, and 12. And of
Very
course,
impressionable age.
well, my oldest daughter, all she ever wanted was for her daddy to love her, because he used to beat her and me both. He was an abuser. And he never abused the middle daughter or my son. And it was really sad the way it happened. But it was, again, one of us had to be the adult, and it was me.
So you stepped away.
So I stepped away so they could live in peace.
So how did you reconnect with them?
Well, I found. Well, Fred went through a scare. He had a heart virus and thought he was going to die. So he initially, about 26 years ago, made contact so we could get back together with the kids. And Steve, my youngest, and my middle daughter still wanted nothing to do because they still were very much into their father. And but I had a relationship with my daughter. And then about 8 years ago, kind of what you call a comedy of errors happened. She lost her phone. My phone from Chicago I had turned off because I was here now and I got a Texas phone. And both of us, all of our phone numbers were on the phone. We couldn't find each other. She had no landline, and she kept looking under my maiden name rather than my married name. And I actually found him on Facebook last year.
Wonderful. So Facebook, even though there's a lot of negative things they say, there's a lot of good things.
Good way to reconnect.
Reconnect with people that you have not connected 27 years.
Well, my girlfriend, who I hadn't had contact with in about 15 years, found me on Facebook.
Through Facebook.
So I mean, it's a godsend.
You know, I want you to look in the camera and tell our audience, how are you doing today in relationship with your own body, your health, your relationship with God, and your children?
Well, actually, I'm doing fabulous. My relationship with my oldest daughter is like we never were separated. My faith in God has never been shaken. Even when I was diagnosed with breast cancer, it was basically, I said to God, I said, all right, here I am. I got cancer. Now let's get through it. And we did, together. And I think he put Dr. Bullock's in my path to make me, I mean, this is going to sound a little crass, but I got the tatas of a 16-year-old. You know, he asked me, he says, do you want the same size you had before? I says, absolutely not. I said, I want Perkies. And he gave me Perkies. And it was, but he was put in my, I know he was put in my path by God, because I don't think I would have had such a wonderful outcome if it hadn't been for him. And this is not an advertisement, but if anybody ever needs but he specialized in, he spent 12 hours on his feet. And he had to sign special papers with my insurance company saying he would take just what they would give him. He takes people who don't have a whole lot of money and helps them because he specializes
in people.
In
He
people.
invests in people. You know,
Yes.
what I want our audience to know today is that, you know, Miss Vega is an example who have overcome almost everything that we will be talking on this show. There was abuse, there was abandonment, there was cancer, and there's still life after all that. And that's what we want to share at Amazing Grace, the amazing journey of women like you, Miss Vega, who has overcome diverse situations. So if you or anybody you know are having similar problems or situations like this, you know, call us. Call that number on your screen. We have prayer partners here, so willing to pray for you. We have counselors. We can connect you with medical help or agencies, organizations that can do pre-screening for you. We just want to let you know you don't have to die with cancer. There is life after cancer. And we at Destiny TV are so glad you were tuned in to us today. You watched our program. If this program has helped you, please tell a friend about us. And I am Sarah Abraham, your host. And until next time, stay blessed and stay healthy. This is Destiny TV.
Thank you.